So before I actually start, a little pre-story while I hand these out. So originally I had this planned out. I was going to make little newspapers. So what that means is that I was going to bring these right here, and it was going to look like a newspaper clipping. So what I'm going to be talking about would look like, you know, you just got the newspaper from the little kid that throws them out on, you know. Yeah. So this is like a newspaper clipping. But as things tend to go and things play out, here I am printing, picking up Justin from work, coming back. It didn't print. And then when it did print, it didn't print to size. It was printed all over the place. So I was like, oh no, here I go again. So I was stressed out, which is why we were late. And, oh, okay, well, I'll just hand them all. And so, long story short, too late. It ended up not turning out the way I wanted to, so I'm kind of winging it now.
This is amazing.
It looks good. It looks good, but not, like I said, yeah, you know, you have this idea, this vision, and so I was like, man, I didn't do it the way I really wanted to. I wanted it to look like, you know, like you guys are going to open up a newspaper, like you know, because we're all used to our technology, but when's the last time we opened up a newspaper? So that was kind of like my vision on this. So imagine this is just a fake newspaper now. And so I know y'all know my husband, Justin, and that he's a preacher, and I'm not. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a preacher. I'm a good talker. I'm a good, you know, I can teach you stuff about exercise science because I really love the science and I'm really into it. And, you know, I'm new to all this. So, you know, even with the Bible, you know, when I remember we were like picking pages and I looked at him, I was like, what page are we on? I don't know where we're at. So he would be like, there is no page. My book's different than yours. You got to find the tabs and all that. So please have patience with me on that. Well, if you haven't noticed, and you also probably already seen it in the title, my sermon's about lack and abundance, or lack versus abundance. And the reason I say that is because I'm always saying, I'm not a preacher. He's a preacher. So I focus on my lack. I'm not a good reader, but he's a good reader. So I focus on my lack. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, not only just for myself and where I'm trying to get out of, is that a lot of us, we focus on, well, I don't know how to do this, or I can't do that. So my intro goes into, again, it looks like a newspaper, you know, the latest updates. In the Bible, there are several stories and examples where the characters are focusing more on lack than abundance. Can you think of a story in the Bible where they were crying about or complaining about lack? So anybody here? I'm asking actually the question, so yeah, go ahead.
The people that were the feeding of the 5,000 when they said
we only have this little bit, exactly. Anybody else?
The Israelites are crying about going back to Egypt.
Going back to Egypt. Why were they crying about going back to Egypt? Wasn't that what they wanted? Weren't they saved? Like, no, they were crying why?
They had all the manna in Egypt.
You know?
They got tired of manna. There's no water.
Yeah, they were complaining. And what are they focusing on? What they don't have, the lack. So in the newspaper that I sent y'all, on the left side, there are a couple examples just to kind of keep your mind on it. Like, okay, you know, there's people in the Bible that complain about lack, like Hagar. You know, here she is and crying about, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And they're like, look, your son already prayed. There's water right here, because she wasn't focusing on what was important. The Israelites, like we just talked about, they were complaining, being in the wilderness. You got Elijah with the widow. What are they complaining about? You know? All she has is flour and oil, just enough food to make for myself. And he's like, no, make bread for all of us. You know, so these are all just examples. My main point, and this is where I, you know, turn it into a case point, is the forbidden fruit. Focusing on the first lack in the Bible. We have Adam and Eve. They're in the garden. They have the abundance. It's in Genesis. It actually starts in Genesis 2, where it explains exactly what is there. I mean, they've got trees and fruits and plants and wildlife and water, but they also have gold. And in that time, who even needed gold or who knew what gold was? But they had it all, you know? But what was going on? They had all these trees, but she focused on one thing that she couldn't have. So where in our life, ask yourself that question, where are we focusing on that one thing we don't got? Like me not being a preacher versus all the things that I can do. So when we go out to Synacor, I don't preach, but I'm making papers, I'm doing sign-in rosters, I'm preparing songs if I have to. So I don't want to focus no more on I can't preach. I'm focusing on what is it that I can do to help the purpose? Yes. What can I do to help the team?
Because we all have a purpose.
Exactly. So here, the issue was not the provision. They had provision. The issue was their perception, what they were looking at. They weren't focusing on what they were supposed to focus on. I gotta breathe. Here we go. Case 2, we have only 5 loaves. So we talked about that a minute ago. All they had was 5 loaves. Faced with feeding over thousands of people, the disciples saw only 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus saw a miracle waiting to happen. You know, so where's our perspective here? Where, from what angle are we looking at things? We're looking at, like the disciples, we were focusing on lack, on our limitations, and on our problems. Jesus was like, hold on, this is an opportunity.
Right.
This is our chance right now to show our availability and to give a solution and show the divine power of Jesus Christ. This is our opportunity now to show, hey, look what Jesus can do for you. You know, I use the saying sometimes, stop crying. A lot of times, my kid told me today, he's like, that sounds really hard, Mom. Don't use it. So I can't say, why are you crying? So, you know, just look at what you got versus what you don't have. Now, in the article here that I found in the newspaper, I saw that they put in the verses. So this is like backup, just in case you didn't remember the story, or if there was things that you were questioning, you can always go back and read on it. My reflection on here, though, is when faced with challenges, do you see only what is lacking, or do you see what God can do with what you have? Do we look at what we have versus what we don't have? Situation that happened at my house a long time ago, we didn't really have a lot of food. We only had bits and pieces. And I don't know if y'all ever watched Chopped, as I like Chopped. They used foods from leftovers, threw it together and made a whole meal out of it that was something totally different than what they started with. They had macaroni and cheese, they rolled them up, and then they made dumplings out of them. You know, just using what you got and made something different to entice the children. Hey, look, no, this is not the same from yesterday. This is something new. This is something improved. Look, this is different type of chicken, you know, but this is what we do as mothers or as fathers. We got to make magic happen in the kitchen. So we use what's left and make the most out of it. And that's what I relate to when I think of we only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Imagine what you can make with leftovers in the kitchen, you know? One thing I wrote on here that, and you maybe even see the picture, you know, I thought was really cute, is see 5 loaves and 2 fish and expect a feast. And that is what I see when I have leftovers. I don't see that leftovers, I see the meal. Moving forward to my third point, I gotta breathe again, and I'm thirsty, sorry. I don't know if anybody's ever, you know, cooked a lot of leftovers, but I surely have.
I have.
There's many ways to make ramen noodles, you know, throw an egg in it, or if you grew up with Spam and rice, you know what, in the morning, Spam and rice and eggs, that's breakfast, so definitely.
Yeah, ramen box in my house.
There you go, see? Hibachi, ramen hibachi, you know? Make it exciting.
We have ramen pizzas in jail, man.
You see what I'm saying? You start becoming inventive, right? You know?
Bread, baby.
And you're right? And you don't even focus on the lack at that point, because you see actually the abundance that you have. Now, turning my story in a little different way, I have 4 kids. And before surgery, because I had a C-section, they made sure you don't eat. When you don't eat, that's the time you start thinking about all the foods you love.
Literally.
All the foods you love.
Or when you're fasting.
Or when you're fasting, exactly. But the big thing is when you start narrowing down to the smallest things. A cheese sandwich sounds great when you haven't eaten in hours. You know, I don't know if y'all ever had a ketchup sandwich, but ketchup sandwich sounded real good when you were really hungry, you know, and you didn't eat. And so we sometimes are in positions where we think we have absolutely nothing. And my mom used to say, swallow your spit. I don't know if y'all ever were told that, but swallow your spit, you know? and or they would give you the lemon thing to suck on, you know, where you just had enough to make it through. This bleeds into my last sermon, or my last topic, which is, though she had nothing, the widow's oil. That is also in 2 Kings. And I like this story because we're talking about a lady who lost her husband. We're talking about a lady who is now left, and in this time, a mom without a husband is nothing, you know, is nobody. And so her husband made bills, her husband made, you know, promises that now is left on her to keep. You know, today we have insurance that'll cover us, but back then there was no such thing as insurance. Back then it's like, well, you know what? I'm the landowner and you owe me. So I'm going to take your sons because they're going to work for me for what your husband owed me. Even though he's dead, they still owe me. So you're always responsible for what your parents did, even though you weren't even there maybe. What I like about this story is that, you know, Elisha asked what she had, and she replied that she only had a small jar of oil. All I got are my 2 hands. All I got is my brain. All I got is the car that's outside. All I got are these 3 blankets. I don't know if you ever watched the Sesame Street. One kid had paper, the next kid had paint, the other kid had the paint brushes. Well, for all of us to paint, if everybody brings one, we can make something out of it, you know? And that's what happens here. All she had was just a small jar of oil. So he said, go grab as many jars as you can. Bring as many as you can. And we're gonna go ahead and fill it and fill it and fill it. There was so many taken care of with that she had an abundance. Focusing on that lack, she wouldn't have seen that abundance. She got that abundance. God had turned her lack into an abundance. She had enough to pay off all her debt. Her children could actually go and do what they needed to do. And this relates again to myself because I have, again, 4 kids. And when I joined the Army, my biggest worry was, or before the Army, how am I going to pay for their school? You know, I didn't want them to have the limitations I had where like your parents don't have the money. Sorry, your only options are this. But I'm like, this is good though. This is smart. I want to do more. I don't want to be limited. And then now my kids have the opportunity to go to college that they probably would have never had. Make the most out of the little bit that I have. You know, make the most out of the little bit you have. You might not know it. You got something that somebody else could use to improve their life. My reflection question here was, what oil are you overlooking in your life? Something small, but full of potential. Your little is enough when placed in the hands, and He will provide. I gotta breathe. I get excited, I'm sorry. So I get, and I have to breathe every so often, and then I get thirsty. I don't know if it happens to y'all when you're up here, you get cotton mouth, but I do. Well, coming to the last paper of our newspaper here, the scope of the day. So it's like the update of kind of like bringing everything together in the end. So we've journeyed through stories of prophets, disciples, and everyday people. Each moment where lack seemed louder than abundance. Kind of relates like to a lot of things I've lived through, where lack just seemed like louder than abundance. You can't do this. You're not good enough for that. You know, you're not chosen because of, you know. Yet every case God has presented and shown us perception, a perspective, and provision. He showed us that we focused on lack when he focused on abundance. When we focused on loss, he focused on gain. This shift from lack to abundance doesn't begin with having more. It begins with seeing clearly. So ask yourself, what if we became people who see what the issue isn't what you have? It's your perception. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at reading. Seeing 5 loaves and 2 fish and having a feast, that's a perspective. Seeing that your little becomes more than enough because he provides. This kind of vision changes everything. It transforms our texture from grasping to giving, from doubt to faith, and from I'm sorry, I can't say this word. Scarcity. I know what it is, but I can't say scarcity to overflow. When I read that and when I think about that and when I put this together, there was something that Justin had said to me all the time. He's like, be a fountain, not a drain. Be a fountain, not a drain. And that is the end of my presentation.